Oh, hello, my friends. Hello, my life warriors, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to the Day In, Day Out podcast. Woo! Today on episode 251, I'm very lucky to have Sharlene Lynch on the podcast. She is a global speaker, tribal leader, as well as many other things as well. And let's just say on the down low, on the quiet, she might do a little bit of belly dancing on the side, but that's another story. Sharlene, how are you today?
I am magnificently magnificent. Every day above ground is a good day.
You're damn right about that. Yes, we were talking about her woes and the trials and tribulations she has to suffer with Australian weather. Yes, she's saying this to someone in the UK where okay, look, seeing 30 Celsius at this present time would be a marked improvement. Doesn't look like it's going to happen. Yeah.
So it is a little chilly here.
Okay. Tell the lovely people what temperature it is. Come on.
Okay. It's a sunny 13 degrees.
Oh.
It's a summer day in London.
13 degrees. You know what? There are people which would strip down to a t-shirt and go, oh my God, it's here. The sun is here in the UK. 13 degrees. No.
I know. And it's, you know what? I think everything is relative and we get used to things. And this is why we sit in our comfort zones.
And you know what? This is the thing. Yes, we do get quite comfy in those comfort zones, and trying to shake ourselves out of those comfort zones is kind of difficult, tricky at times. This is the thing. You say mind shift where others say mindset. Why mind shift?
Great question. Our minds are not set. They're malleable. We can change, form new ideas, create new beliefs, create new patterns. Mm-hmm. So we need to just, first of all, change the language that we're using. So we run around calling it mindset. Got to fix my mindset. So about mindset, it's not set. So let's start using a language that supports our growth and moving forward. And let's refer to it as mind shift. So that's a mission, to have the rest of the planet refer to mindset as mind shift. And it also encompasses the shift process, which is what I took myself through and what I help my clients through. So, yeah, I really have a strong belief that language reprograms us. And if we change our language, we change our life.
This is the thing, with regards to changing your language and changing your life, what would you say, what is an example of this?
I've got 1,000. So, it just can be the little things that we do. So something could have happened to you today, and what you say to yourself when that happens is how we reprogram ourselves. We were moving some pot plants around upstairs and accidentally dropped one. What do you say when you accidentally drop one? Do you say, oh, I'm an idiot, or I do this all the time? What are the words that you say when you do the things that don't support you moving forward? That's how we reprogram ourselves. So if we can change the language around that and have a little bit of space between thought and action, we can use language that's going to support us moving forward, nurture us, care for us, and help us grow and expand.
Yeah, I always find it interesting because this is the thing, when someone does an accident or has dropped something, as you just gave as an example, we always seem to refer to ourselves in the negative rather than in the positive. Or it was didn't see that coming. Or it's accidents do happen. But it's always sort of drawn onto ourselves in a negative way. It's as you said, I'm always clumsy. I'm an idiot. What's with my stupid clown hands and such? But yeah, why do you think that is?
Well, okay, so we're programmed this way. We've seen our parents behave this way. It's what we've always done, and it's reinforced behavior. So we just continue it. But I'd love to share with you. This is, can you see this? It's for the people that are listening and not watching, it's 2 little rubber bands.
Okay.
So this is something that my dad shared with me when I was just very, very young. And I didn't understand the power of this until well after he passed. So this is a way to reprogram yourself that's very, very simple. Now, I use 2 rubber bands because one's for my thought process. So I've got a grey one here. So that's for my grey matter. And I've got a green one here, which really should be red because I'm wearing red lipstick. So when I say something that doesn't support me, I look at the rubber bands and figure out, okay, so it's the green one that I need to ping, and then I just ping it. Now, it's a little uncomfortable. It's not a real amount of pain, and it's not like I'm into hurting myself anymore, that is. But what it does, it allows me to put space between thought and action so that I can have different words to support myself. If I think something that doesn't support me, then I look at these and I say, oh, well, I'm going to need to click the grey one. And then I click that. Now, we as humans move faster away from pain than we do towards pleasure. It's a thing. So if we want to reprogram our language and our thought processes, just something so simple, something as free as putting rubber bands on your wrist and using them to change the patterns of thoughts and behaviors is so powerful. It's helped me move from where I was to where I am without using any medication, just using and understanding how your brain chemistry works and using things that can support you to move forward.
So you're kind of using a form of NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, to put that into play.
Yes, exactly. So, but using a physical structure here so that I've got a space, a time after. So part of the changing of the patterns of behavior is giving that space between the thought and the action. You need to create something that's going to do that. Wearing the rubber bands means that you have to stop. You have to think which band and then pull it. And then it gives you that chance to rethink the words that you want to use to support you, to have the outcome that you're looking for, the intention that you're looking for.
Yeah, I imagine this sort of reprogramming for yourself took a long time for it to sort of set in. Do you sometimes find yourself being caught out on the rare occasion where you're like, hey,
I still have rubber bands. I still have rubber bands because every time, I know we can laugh, every time that we up level, so I'm just talking about myself now, so every time I up level, take on bigger clients, take on bigger contracts, stand on bigger stages, it doesn't matter. We're human, and if we could just see ourselves in all of our glory like we really are, we wouldn't be behaving this way, but we don't. So for myself, yes, every time I have something where I need to up level, I'll reach for the rubber bands. That's why they're sitting right there because I use them very regularly.
Charlene, are you standing in a room with like boxes of the rubber bands all around you? I have to ask because it's like, yeah.
Well, you know, a funny story, because it's not too far from the truth. As a recovering hoarder, we collect lots of little things, and that's another story. Yes, and so, you know, one of the things that I did have when I moved through that process and now at the other side is humongous balls, and they were just rubber bands. So, you know, half the size of a basketball, and they're just rubber bands. So yeah, we just like to collect things. So yes, and also back. So you're not too far from the truth that yes, I have in my time have been surrounded with lots of rubber bands.
Hey, I was just coming out with a quick witty joke. I didn't know it went so deep.
Oh yes.
You're going, yes. I remember the days, meanwhile. I remember the days. I came through the other side. But like, this is the thing, like so often when you mention glory there, so often you don't sort of seek out that sort of thing, glory, that sort of thing, what makes us better. Because like, I think when you try to seek out glory, it's not just like having that glorious moment. It's not that having that sort of glorious moment in the presence of like a higher being or a deity. or having that glorious moment of after triumph or anything like this. The amount of work, what goes into it, like the trials, the tribulations, the pain, the joy, no one seems to like go, let me lean into that. They want to lean into the good, but without leaning into the bad. And it's like, yeah, no one wants to get to heaven, as they say, without dying. Yeah.
And it's true, we do. We compare our chapter 1 to other people's chapter 20. It seems to be a human preoccupation, is this challenge with comparison. Comparisonitis, it even has a thing now. And you know, if we're heading towards a journey and we're heading in a direction, then we will, unfortunately, as you say, we'll be comparing ourselves. Exactly. And we need to give ourselves, you know, special love and affection for every tiny little step that we take. You know, when I gave up coffee, I celebrated the fact that I gave up coffee. This is hot chocolate. But, you know, every tiny thing that you do on my weight loss journey, every 0.2 of a kilo, we're still in kilos here in Australia, no pounds. We, celebrate every 0.2. So, you know, we need to do that, because then when we celebrate those wins, we are rewiring our brains to believe that more is possible and we can keep moving, and we build on each success rather than jumping from here to there. We take those tiny steps and we build along the way. Yeah,
no, it's like, it's one of those things where it's like the one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. Like everyone's like sort of doing like, oh, let me do the leap. But if you kind of look at the whole sort of NASA space program to get someone to the moon, it was hundreds of experiments going wrong, rockets exploding, people losing their lives, and basically countless innovations along the way, little small steps to get to that one big triumphant moment. And people, I think, don't really sort of take that into account for their own lives. They think it's like, yeah, I'll tell you what, I want to be the world's best, insert whatever, tomorrow. And it's like, how? Like, how many people do you know? How many people have you had practice in whatever profession you want to do? No, not really, but I just know in my heart I can be this. It's like, okay. It's like,
and you know, it's like you have to keep both things in your mind. You need to keep that intention if that's what you want to do, but then also have, and that's the second letter of the shift process. But just as you were saying to the moon, there, I don't remember which mission it was on, but I do remember them saying that the amount of time, so it's a straight line between Earth and the moon, but the amount of time they were on track for that straight line was less than 3%. So it was test measure. So it was more of a zigzag to get there rather than a straight line. And, you know, if we can embrace that, to know that we only need to be on mission or right on track 3% of the time, and we're heading in the right direction. Yeah. And at least we're getting there. And all of these little, you know, steps to the left, steps to the right, they are still part of the learning process. And if we can keep embracing ourselves and know and keep in mind, this is the outcome, the moon, this is where we want to go, then we can adjust, and we can be kinder to ourselves on the journey rather than like beating ourselves, which is, I know that's what I did a lot of my journey. And it's made a huge difference to have that level of self-compassion.
Yeah, no, but this is the thing. I think everyone does that to a certain extent. Like, especially if they are sort of really trying to make that sort of change in their life. Like, you get, like, there is a difference between someone goes, you know what, I'm going to make a change. I'm going to make a difference. I'm going to like change who I am. And I go, okay, what are you going to do? It's like, yeah, I've done this. And they do all these superficial things when they sometimes just need to sit down, be in a quiet room and just pick up that imaginary mirror and have a good look at themselves and do that sort of self-reflection. And with that sort of self-reflection, there is some painful truths what live there. And not all of it is pretty, and you know what I mean? It's one of those things what people shy away from. And when you do this, yeah, you've got to sometimes take that on the chin with regard to, yeah, I'm this, I'm that, I'm this, in order to address those like key things to make yourself better along the way, you know?
Exactly. Sometimes even when we're looking in the mirror, you'll love this. Even when we're looking in the mirror.
It's like, I love this. It's
Even when we're looking in the mirror.
it's like a show. I'm not like I'm wondering what else.
The listening audience, I'm holding up a mirror. So even when we're looking in the mirror, sometimes we don't have the capacity to see it because we're seeing it through our own veil. And this is what, for me, in my growth journey, where the help of trusted advisors and coaches and mentors have really come into play for me, because we've got our own opinions of what we're doing. And you know, we score ourselves 1 to 10 on pretty much everything and where that lies. But it's also what's happening from the outside in as well as the inside out. So you need to have both. And then I've got to tell you, the reason why I have a mirror is that I do a lot of mirror work. So for me, it is an ongoing practice. It's not one of those things you just do once. I do mirror work all of the time when I need to have those conversations with myself where I need to see myself eye to eye.
Okay. Like when did you discover mirror work?
Gosh, now that's got to be decades ago. So isn't it, it's really interesting is that all of these things, my understanding of kinesiology, NLP, all of the interesting things that I know, love and trust is that even though I knew them all, I didn't use them. And it was until that night, you know, in September 2011, you know, more than 10 years ago now, that changed everything. And then I pulled the resources of what I've got in underneath and then started using them. It wasn't just lip service anymore. I didn't just know about them. I started using the tools and techniques that I have. So I'm going to say Carolyn Mace, Wayne Dwyer, or like long time ago, people were starting to use mirror work and it was a thing. I'm going to go maybe the 80s. Are you that old?
Nonsense. That's like, no. Like, shit. Like, no. Yeah, like, no, you just buy sprouts.
I'm 55 years old and I love it. I love telling people I'm 55 years old because I feel it or not feel it. I embrace this is where I am and this is the reality and I love it. I own it. I wear it. I tell everybody. And I think that's part of it. If we can, own where we are, own our thought processes, and I think it just adds a bit of levity to it and also lightens it as well. I come from a history of mental illness and it's okay. I can talk about that. When we don't talk about the things, that's when we carry a heavier burden. But when we can easily have these beautiful conversations where we go, yeah, this is what happened to me, it really makes it easier for other people as well because it lightens their load.
Yeah, but like this is the thing, I've got to say you come across as a very rounded individual, even though you have all the props in the world and like a stash of elastic bands everywhere. But that's But like the whole thing is like, you take responsibility, which I don't think many people do in this day and age for basically, I've got this, I've got that. They externalize whatever that sort of like problem they might have in their lives, where they might have to, going back to what I mentioned earlier, have a sit down and like sort of do that sort of self-reflection and go, wait, is it me?
I love it. So it really is coming from a place of living as a victor rather than living as a victim. And there's this great acronym and it says, get your own oar and get out of bed and row your own boat. And so what it basically means is to live above the line. And how we live above the line is we take responsibility. We take responsibility for our own thought processes. Regardless of what happens, we need to step in and have a look at our level of responsibility. So I come from a domestic violence background. Now, if I was still in that mentality, I would still be in a victim mentality, but I take responsibility for the fact that I was still in the same room. I could have made different choices. Yes. And, hit me once, hit me twice, hit me a third time, and I still went back. So, and this is a hard conversation to have with people that are in that environment right now, because they feel that they don't have choices. Well, we do have choices to change the way that we think. So taking that level of responsibility, taking that level of accountability for everything, for the words that we say, how we talk, what we do with our time. You want to grow and expand, but you spend 20 hours a day watching television. We need to take that level of accountability for everything. Yeah. So responsibility, accountability, and ownership of where we are. So, at one point in my life, I was homeless. I needed to take ownership of that. What did I do to get myself into that situation? What can I do to get myself out of that situation? And so get out of bed and grab your own oar. The bed is blame, excuses, and denial. So living away from those three things helps you live above the line, so you can live as a victor rather than as a victim. And I live my life above the line.
Yeah. Oh, no. Fantastic. Like, I like that a lot. Like, this is the thing. One of the things I'm curious about, like, okay, you mentioned you were a victim of domestic violence. Now, at the time when it was going on, if a friend of yours was in your situation and you saw them and they came to you and they confided in you that this is going on, what would you have said to that friend?
So this is not too far from what happens for us on a daily basis. So in Adelaide, we run a charity called Healing Through Love. So it's to create shift awareness on domestic and family violence. And the idea is to pull back the covers so that we can have conversations just like we're having right now.
Yeah.
And it's also, we create pamper days where the girls can come along, and guys, we've got them for guys as well, but we keep them separate, and come along and be pampered like they're going to a day spa. So this conversation does happen for me on a regular occasion, where I get an emergency phone call, or I'll get a text message or a Facebook message. And during the conversation, for me, it's about holding that compassionate heart and having someone that they can talk to, not shutting them down, just giving them an opportunity to have a conversation. And sometimes in that darkness, we are not in a position to take that level of responsibility. We sometimes just need an ear. We just need to know that there's someone out there on the other side that can communicate with us and let us know that we're okay and that we're enough. And then from there, we do the inside work to move forward. Now, everyone's in a different situation. Some are in a life-threatening situation. So it really depends what's happening as to what resources we reach out to help them move forward. But ultimately, they need to make the first move. And sometimes that first move is just having a conversation about, I'm not okay, what can I do? So the very first thing is listening. It's about listening and having that compassionate heart. And I work to be a shining example of what is possible to move forward. And, for some, that's enough. And others, they just need someone to talk to. And then sometimes they just need resources. So they're just looking for people they can contact. Where is a home I can go stay in? All of those things. So it's a really case-by-case situation. And I've even, because of my history with suicide, I even get those phone calls, like, on the 11th hour. And being in that situation. Now, I'm not an expert authority on this. Yes, I'm a holistic psychologist, but I send them to where they need to go. But I'm at least the first person that they might talk to before I get them to where they need to go.
Yeah, no, the only reason why I asked this, because unfortunately, I've had friends, and they've been some of the strongest ladies I've known in my life, go through this sort of realm of domestic violence and stuff like this. And it's one of the things which kind of throws me, because I've asked them, I went, okay, if this situation was going on with someone else, what would you say, or what would you tell them to do? And they bam, they give out a long, detailed list of a number of things they would tell them to do and everything like this. And I'm okay. So, and I would say it back to them, and it was like, this is what you would say to someone else, but this is what you need to do for yourself. And it's like, sometimes the penny drops, and sometimes it's like, there's this sort of, this realm of distance of what they've said to where they actually see themselves, if you get what I mean.
Yep. No, I understand that. Even even while I was still in that space myself, if we can call it a space, if we can call it a vibration, if we can call it a vibe, whilst I was still there, I found myself helping other people that were worse off and the same as me. So, the biggest lesson that I've learned is listen. Just be a compassionate heart, ask questions and listen, because every situation is completely different. What helped me get out of my situation is not going to necessarily help the next person.
Yeah, I hear you.
And everyone's on a different level of moving towards freedom, moving towards being a survivor and moving towards being a thriver. So yeah, every case is different.
Now, I've got, like, this is the thing, like, you are proving to be a very interesting cat, to say the least. Yeah, absolutely. Put the power of into that situation. No, because like this is the thing, being homeless, like, yeah, look, you've gone through, like, I would like to talk about the sort of like one of your darkest hours in the moment, but yeah, but you've gone through a real dark time, and like, yeah, being a survivor of domestic like abuse as well. And like, yeah, being like, now what I would have to say is a positive shining light for people to sort of move themselves forward. Like it comes like, I've kind of lost my train of thought for a moment, but
not you.
Hi. But like the whole thing is engaging that sort of shift from one position to another position to another position, like to keep going forward. What would you say? Like, was it a sense of belief in oneself? Was it a case of faith in oneself or faith in a greater power? What sort of kept you moving forward?
Yep. Okay. So we will talk about my darkest hour in a moment.
Yep.
Yes. And we need to make a decision. We need to make a decision for what it is the outcome that we're looking for. Now, we take this word decision too lightly. Decision actually means to cut off and kill. It means, so think suicide, pesticide. So it means to cut and kill. And what happens is when we make a decision, I'm going to make a decision to lose weight, but I'm not going to get up in the morning and exercise. I'm going to make a decision to find the love of my life, but I'm not even going to get on a dating app. Like, we make these decisions, but then we don't follow up with the behaviors that are going to get us where we need to go. So when I made the decision that I was going to live a different life, when I made the decision that I was going to have a life that thrived, I was at the deepest, darkest space in my life. I had no concept of what it could look like to live an empowered life. I wasn't living one. I didn't even have a concept. I saw things on television that I thought maybe that's what it is, but I made the decision without even knowing what the clear paths were, what the hows were, what resources I would need. I made the decision. And, if I can just, share one thing with the entire world, is make a decision for what you want your life to look like. When we make a decision, what happens is our own psychological immune system kicks in and it supports us. While we're sitting with one foot on one side of the fence and one foot on the other side of the fence, we have our own brain is working against us. We say yes, we say no, we say yes, we say no. We move backwards and forwards, and really we're actually destroying our immune system. When we make a line in the sand, I'm not moving from this is the decision that I'm making, then what happens? Your psychological support system cuts in and it supports you the entire way. So if we can make decisions and stick with them, then we will you can be, do, have, share everything your heart desires when you make the decision. So that night, I made a decision. My life is going to thrive. Don't know what it looks like. I didn't even say that. I said, I'm not going to survive. I'm out of survival mode. Now it's into thrive mode. And then began the process of figuring out what that even looked like. And that brings me to here today, 10 years down the track.
Yeah, it must be difficult because like, this is the thing. Now, okay, when someone goes, I want to thrive, I want to or be successful, or I want that sort of better lifestyle, whatever sort of real tag they're going to put on it. They often have a picture which doesn't necessarily match what their true needs are. I want to be a better person, and better person might be, I want to be rich and famous and everything like this. And you're like, okay, are you sure that's what it is? It could just be like, yeah, working a regular job, having a regular paycheck, and just like being social with people. Or it might be a case of, yeah, being out there. I'm a big social influencer or anything like this. Like, it can be that extreme, but they don't actually sort of sit down to find if it's the small, the medium, or the large, what sort of fits their life, or something completely different, you know?
I hear you. I hear you. So they need to craft that. So that's the very first letter of the shift process, is to see the big picture. And, you know, what does that look like for you? But what does it look like on a daily basis? So mine was to become a world-class transformational public speaker. I'm dyslexic. That's not going to happen. I stutter when I talk. I look, I can't even get a sentence out. So like, how am I going to be this? Yes. And then what does that day look like? What does that day look like? Yeah. So you want to be a hairdresser. What does a day like look at a hairdresser? You want to be a successful mum. What does a day look like as a successful mum? Like, what does it look like first thing in the morning? Where do you get out of bed? You know, who's in the bed with you? What are you having first thing in the morning? Are you exercising? What does your day look like? Because our life is a series of days. Are these the days that you want to have? And, you know, we have these pictures of the things that we want to have, but, you know, say they want to be an executive banker, but what does that day look like? Is that the day that you want to have? So craft your life, make a decision about what you want every day to look like, build those like building blocks on top of each other. How do you want to feel? What do you want your relationships with other people to be like? What do you want to contribute to the world? Where do you want to live? Like, if you can get really specific about what it is that you're looking to create, then you can create it. Manifestation's a reality. We do it every day. If we just follow the simple process, everybody can have everything they want. They just need to put enough effort and energy towards it, and, you know, make that decision. This is what I want to do, and then make all of the steps head in that direction. Yes, like the 3% on the moon, we can go off and come back on, but as long as generally we're heading in the same direction, you will get there.
I like that. No, like, it's true. I have to agree with you. It just comes down to like, yeah, like quite often, I think we always find ourselves straddling that fence, trying to make that decision one way or the other. But when we do sort of make this sort of choice to be like, oh yeah, I want to be a billionaire, and you're like, oh yeah, like, yeah. And they have this like imaginary picture of just like, okay, yeah, flinging down money, having a yacht, having big fast cars, or like whatever the sort of lifestyle of the rich and famous is. That's what they see, but they don't actually understand the sort of process or work, what goes behind it. If you told someone, well, okay, yeah, it's going to be 20-hour days, 7 days a week for the next like 10 to 15 years. Yeah, it will cost you like friendships, it will cost you relationships, it will cost you like, yeah, if you got kids, you will be estranged to them. And like, you went, okay, all of these things, it goes, are you willing to pay that price? And if they go, no, then that is not what your dream, that's not the thing for you then. Like, okay, it's because you're going to work against it always. You know what I mean? It's just one of those things where you go, okay, look at weigh it all up. If you're prepared to pay that price, pay the price and go with it 110%. Don't put it on layaway or like, I can get to it like a day or two down the road. Yeah, pay that price daily. Go with it 100%, full passion, and like, see where it takes you. Like, it might not take you necessarily to that sort of like destination you think it might. It might take you a different way, and might keep you going for like down the path which you like going, wow, something completely different. But be prepared to pay that price, you know?
Absolutely. It astounds me. So I work with teaching speakers how to speak. So I'm a professional speaker, but I also teach people. So I'm a professional speaker coach. So, you know, people come and they say, like, I now want to take my business to a place where I'm on stage talking.
Yeah.
Great. okay, if I can get you a speaking gig next week, will you say yes? No. So they have this grand expectation of this is what they want to do. Yes, and they won't do the simple things to get there. So what happens is they'll give voice to this is the big picture I want to have. Yes, and they won't do the scary things.
Yeah.
So as soon as the scary things come up, it's like a no. Well, that's the step that you need to take to get to where you want to go. So now what we're talking about is your own mind shift. We're talking about how your own mind, your own limiting beliefs are working against you to hold you in this lower pattern. So how can we change how you feel about these things? Because it really is about feeling. We are just energy and motion. So what are your emotions around this? What are your feelings around this? How can we get that? How can we change that? How can we live that up to a 10? So that if I said you're on stage tomorrow, you go, yep, I got this. So it's digging in underneath the top layer of, yes, this is what I want, add to the belief systems that are holding us in these patterns.
Yeah, and like this is the thing, when you went, yes, would you do a speaking gig next week? And they are no. Like I would simply go, like if it was me, I'll go, okay, I'll do it. Like the whole thing is, people forget you have to suck at the beginning. You will suck. You will be rubbish. You'll be crap at whatever you do at the beginning. You have to put in the work. Get those reps in. If you don't do it, you'll never improve at it. Dear God. It's like, so it's like, yeah.
It's so true. You've got to fail forward. You've got to suck at it. You've got to really do it badly. I know this lesson more than most. I'm a recovering perfectionist, so I just wouldn't do things that I knew they would be perfect. So they just wouldn't get done because they had to be perfect. So I made my life so miserable by having to be a level of perfection, which was painful to live in that shell. So yes, I'm a recovering perfectionist.
Yeah, no, this is the thing. Perfection is like, perfection basically, it doesn't exist. It's a word which has no meaning. It's like you go, but it's the thing what holds literally everyone back, because it's like, yeah, I've got to wait for that perfect moment to start this. I've got to wait for this perfect moment to go here. I've got to wait. Every time when you put perfect in there, you might as well just say you're not going to do it.
And yet when we can connect our own feelings and emotions and really know what's happening in underneath the surface, then we can feel into that. Okay, it doesn't feel like it's the right thing. Well, what's really happening? Is this a story underneath that? And when we can do that in inner work, we can self-manage, we can self-coach, we can move forward. But it is that work, that inner work. It's the mirror work. It's the inner work that gets us where we need to go. And we're not prepared to dig down deep enough to find out what's stopping us moving forward. We're not prepared to do the small things that we do on a daily basis, like change our language and check in when we say this is what we want to do. Can we back that up? Can you back that up? Or are you just playing lip service to something? Yeah. Can we back it up?
Yeah. What I think people forget is, okay, these are all little Lego bricks of a bigger thing. Like when you put the Lego bricks down one by one, changing your language, you go, what do you mean changing your language? You go, okay, language, like the English language. Oh, like several 100,000 words, which, which can be used to explain things. And yes, seeing as I am British, used in the realm of sarcasm on a daily basis. It's the national pastime. But when you change in language on a daily basis and making each word count either in not sort of in a self-deprecating manner, to put it in more of a positive time. Yeah, each word is a little brick. And then basically that little brick builds up a section. And when you build up a section, then that can lead to other things like, yes, then putting in the skill set, putting in the reps also is more little bricks which come up. And I don't know what that might look like at the end of it, but it's up to you, where you take it.
Yeah, it's so true. So I like to liken them to pearls of wisdom.
Mm.
So part of that is the P is positive practices. So to get me where I was a whole bunch of bad habits. And you can just use the same thing and now call them positive practices, but make them so that they're positively helping you get into the right direction. Yes. And the next is like energy. So PEARLS is an acronym. So the first one is positive practices. E is energy. So we need energy. If you want to have the life you want to live, you need energy. So that is what you're eating, what you're drinking, you know, the energy of what's going in your mind. Are you meditating? Are you sitting in prayer? Like, are you doing the right thing for your energy levels? Are you watching things that are toxic? You know, what are you doing as far as keeping your energy where it needs to go? You go to the gym, you know exactly what I'm talking about. We need to keep the energy up. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
The next letter is A, is for alignment. So are we in alignment with the things that we want to do? So you were saying this before. So are you being that person? Are you doing that person? Are you living that life? You know, you want to be a millionaire, but are you spending money? Millionaires don't spend a lot of money. Just saying, I know a lot of them, they don't spend a lot of money unless it's going to make them money. It's just not how they live. So how are you living on a daily basis? Are you in alignment with the end result that you're looking for? And R stands for responsibility. This is where I'm talking about living above the line, taking that level of responsibility for your life. Yeah. And the L stands for language. Are we using the language to support ourselves to move forward? And the S stands for of pearls of wisdom. The S stands for support. So we are the average of our 5 closest friends. Are you in an environment that is supporting you? Here's what's interesting is that when I was in a space of a domestic violence victim, I was in the proximity of other women who are in the same situation. And that's because it becomes okay when you're surrounded with other people that have got the same wounds, are bleeding the same way. If you want to be a millionaire, who are you hanging out with? If you want to be a public speaker, who are you hanging out with? If you want to be the best coach, who are you hanging out with? And we are the average. So proximity is absolute power. Look at your support system. Look who's hanging around with you. And I have to say, from giving up alcohol, I've lost so many friends. Because when I came out and said, I'm an alcoholic, have been for 30 years, they said, bullshit, you're not. You drink the same amount as me. You're not an alcoholic. So interestingly enough, in the process, I lost a lot of friends because change meets resistance. They didn't like what they saw in my change. And, you know, we are not the best friends we used to be. We are friends at a distance. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I quite often when you, especially when you're trying to do that self-improvement, like, yeah, when you say support, the people around you, the energy around you often shifts because, like, here's the thing. If you're stepping into the light as showing, like, yes, the sort of, how can I say, your imperfections and like the things which might be holding you back and trying to like shed those excuses, other people see that and it makes them look at themselves, goes into that quiet room where they sit with themselves and do a moment of self-reflection, and they don't like it because they see something they don't like about themselves and they react not in a supportive way, but in a way to either drag you back out of the light or in some way of sort of like going, yeah, distancing themselves. It's either drag you in, dragging you back down, or distancing themselves away from whoever that person is in the light. And I do often find it strange because, like, there are many a times there are people which live in different areas and different like environments, and they are in a whole world of trouble. Like what was it? What was the name of the book? I think it was The Coddling of the American Mind, where they basically, like, they had Vietnam vets. Like over in Vietnam, they would be heroin users, like taking it on a regular basis, like, yeah, couldn't function without going through the day without having heroin. They came back to the United States and the majority of them just stopped like that. And it was just like, right, it shows that, like, for me, it shows the power of your environment. Yeah, they might be going out on missions and stuff like this, which highly stressful, escapism. But while they were there, they were one person. When they came back or they went somewhere else, they were a completely different person. And that sort of shift in mindset, I'm using your thing right there, is quite true and like evident. Sometimes I'll just simply go, look, if you really want to change, if you can do it, if you can afford it, and you can sort of like not break those sort of like ties you have around you, just get up, pack your bags and move. You might see your whole world change for the better, you know?
Yep, absolutely. And sometimes it's the ones that are closest to us that will resist our change the most. And that's because your existence, the way that you have been, is comfortable in their environment and you're shaking their tree. So they're not going to be comfortable with it. So yeah, down the track, 10 years down the track, it's a different story. And many of those relationships have been rekindled. Yes, and it's still okay, because sometimes you've got friends, what, for a season, for a reason, for a lifetime. So it all is part of the process. But you're right. We need that support. We need that proximity. And who is it that's surrounding us physically? Where are we? And also the people that we're around as well, if you want to live this different life.
Yeah. Now, with regards to that, I'm sorry to bring you to this, but like this is a thing. Yeah, like you went through a particularly hard time through your life. And like, please forgive me if it was with like your son, Scott, is that correct?
Yeah, my baby Scott.
Yeah. Yeah, what happened?
Is it okay to share the story with your listeners?
Like, by all means. I think it's one of these things which I think is going to absolutely add to the sort of character to who you are and like where you'll come from.
Well, okay, so I'll talk to you about the night. So it was September 2011. It was a cool night, and I'd come home relatively sober from a birthday party. Now, that in itself was really unusual because I was hardly ever sober. I started drinking at 10 o'clock in the morning. I was a highly functioning alcoholic. So I'd come home early from a birthday party and I wanted to let my son know that I was home. So I knocked on his door in true mother form. Mummy's home, and no response. I'm like, ah. So I wiggled his door and his door was locked. And, you know, that's really weird because Scott never locked his door. We just didn't lock our doors. We weren't that type of family. So, okay. So I said, look, to my partner, I said, can you go around the outside of the house and look through his bedroom window and get his attention? He's probably gaming. He's probably wearing those headsets that gamers wear. He had several of them, and he's probably playing a silly game and he can't hear. So I stood in my laundry and I'm looking out of the window so I can see him getting up to have a look through the window. Now, I couldn't see what he could see, but what I could see was his face, and it was just pure horror. I knew there was something wrong. I didn't know what it was. I ran around to my son's room and I kicked the door down to find that my baby boy had hung himself on the back of the door. I tried for 15 long minutes to try and resuscitate him, all while praying that God would bring him back, that he would miraculously come back to life. And the ambulance officers came in with their hands fully laden with equipment and they ushered me out of his room. And still, time stood still as I'm standing there, still praying that they would be able to do the thing that I couldn't do. When the ambulance officer came out of the room, I could see his face, but I couldn't hear what he's saying. He looked at me and that look was enough, and I crashed to the ground, still praying that a miracle would happen. That's when I heard it, one word. It was so loud, it was so audible. I thought everyone could hear it. It was forgive. It was a message for me. When I was able to stand up, which took quite some time, the ambulance officer said, do you want to come in and say your goodbyes to Scott? And so I did. I went into his room and I laid down on the ground, and look, he's 6'3", so he's a big boy. And I laid down on the ground and I rested my head on his chest and I said, Mummy loves you, baby, and I forgive you for your choice. What I didn't understand is the power of that forgiveness in that moment in time. And it wasn't until sometime down the track I was able to unpack that. But that began my healing journey. I was healing at the speed of love. I was in a completely different space than everyone around me that night. Later on that night, as I'm sitting there with my legs sort of tucked in underneath my body, and I'm staring at my giant cup of coffee now going cold, I said, I'm going to thrive through this. I'm not just going to survive. That's what Scott would want. And I haven't had a cup of coffee since. Later on that night, we tried to sleep, I couldn't sleep. Woke up, got out of bed early the next morning and found a spiral bound notebook and just, went back to what I know what to do, which is to give gratitude. So I just wrote down pages and pages and pages and pages of things I was grateful for. Now, what I didn't know was what I was doing is I was changing my frequency. I was shifting my frequency. And that put me in a different space. So the first step was to have that level of forgiveness for Scott. And that was instant healing. The next was to have that decision that I was going to live a life that thrived, even though I didn't know what a life that thrived looked like, because I was in a bit of a murky mire. And then to go through the process of lifting my frequency by just going through gratitude. And I still do gratitude on a daily basis. I start the day with gratitude, I end the day with gratitude, and I do gratitude throughout the day. So that put me in a different space. Now I was able to go, okay, I want to live a life that thrives. What does it look like? And so I just started writing out, and this went for pages, what I wanted my life to look like. It was huge. It went for pages and pages and pages. And then what that was doing, it was allowing me to cast myself forward to what the possibilities of my life could look like. And then the next step was to hone in onto reality as to where I actually was. There was a very dark space in my life. That week alone I went through so many changes myself. A grieving mother. There were 700 people at his funeral. I found myself in a space where I was helping others more than I was helping myself. And that's because I was in a different place, because I had started with that, coming from a place of love, coming from a place of forgiveness. What I did see is that not everyone can be in that place, and that everyone heals at their own speed. And some people need to sit in that frequency, and some, through the layers of going through death, through the anger, through everything. Some people just need to stay in each layer for longer, and that's okay. It has taught me to have a really compassionate heart to help other people through the healing process. Through the last 10 years, I have shifted between where I was and where I am today. So I've shifted and lost 25 kilos, and I'm now a vegetarian. So it was a huge shift for me because I was a big carnivore. I've shifted and I've recovered from a complex OCD disorder to the point of self-harm. My ADHD is now managed. I was a complicated hoarder to a spectacular level. When I moved out of that home that Scott took his life in, 33 cubic meters of stuff. That's a lot of stuff. That's a lot of stuff. So I was a spectacular hoarder. And now 30 years, I'd been an alcoholic. So the first thing was to come out and actually admit that I was an alcoholic, and then go through the healing process. I've now been sober over 5 years. So all of those have taken me through the shift process. And just as I mentioned before, the first letter of the shift process is to see the big picture. And, what is the big picture for everyone here that's listening? What is possible for your life? When we imagine far beyond what we've ever imagined before, when we have that 20-foot view of what our life could really be like, what could you possibly live through? What could you possibly be? What could you possibly do? What sort of a difference could you make to the people around you? But it's about stretching and seeing a much bigger picture. The next letter, H, is to hone in on reality. This is where I suggest you probably need a coach or a mentor or someone to hold that mirror to you, or hold up your own mirror, so that you can really hone in on what really is happening for you. And then the next one of the shift process is I, implement quick wins. So for me, now this is hot chocolate, but in the old days, that would have been the size of my coffee cup, and I had 8 of these a day, full of sugar. is that giving up coffee for me was implementing a quick win. I didn't think that I could give up coffee because I was drinking 8 cups a day, but giving up the coffee implemented a quick win. And it made me believe that other change was possible. If I can give up coffee, maybe I can give up alcohol. I don't know, maybe I can. Let's just see, is it possible? And take that step in that direction. And then the next letter in the shift process is F, focus on the patterns. So what got us to where we are right now isn't an accident. It's a series of patterns of behavior that have got us here, series of patterns. And this is my favorite thing to do, is to journal. This is the greatest way that you can heal yourself, is to journal your thoughts on a daily basis. If writing it pen to paper doesn't tickle your fancy, then type it out. But you need to find a way to get what's inside of your head out. There's magic. You're receiving information. Every human on this planet is receiving information every day when you sleep, and we just get lost in the murky mire between when we wake up and then when we get on with the day. But if you can hold that frequency first thing in the morning, and you can dive in deep to what your learnings have been, where your unconscious mind is speaking to you, you can work it all out. So that's focusing on the patterns. And a lot of people who believe in past lives, it might not be a pattern of this life, it could be a previous life, and it could be your journey here to break that pattern. It could be a family pattern. You know, the more work that I do on family patterns, the deeper I dive. You can be the person in your family that breaks this pattern so that it doesn't happen to your children. And then T, the last letter of the shift process, is take massive action. And as I've already mentioned, I'm a recovering perfectionist. So I'm going to say, take massive imperfect action. Just take a tiny step in the right direction. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it does need to be in that direction. If you fail forward, and then dust yourself off and keep walking. But the shift process has got me from where I was to where I am. And I'm still moving forward and making a powerful difference for myself and my family and for those people that I work with. So yeah, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to share my baby story. And yeah, I hope that it makes a difference for the people that are listening.
Yeah, no, I'm sure it will. I'm sure it will. And like, this is the thing, like the word, like when, like the word, what came to you at that precise moment, forgive, like, and you went, yeah, I forgive Scott. But at that time, would you say it was a case of you forgived yourself as well?
Oh, no, that was a journey. That was a journey. So that night I was in a position to forgive him. Mm-hmm. So that was the first step. And then began the journey of forgiving myself, you know. So as a mother, there's a special place for us where we hold responsibility for every single thing that happens in our household, everything that happens with our children, that seems to be everything that happens on the planet. And we have this, and it's called mother's guilt. And we just live in that space. So the act of forgiving myself for everything, you know, did I drive him to this, being a woman who's an alcoholic, you know, living in an environment which is domestic violence? Like, did I create this environment that gave him no other choice? Like, I took myself through all of the ifs, buts, ands, wheres, everything. Mm-hmm. So the process of forgiving myself it took a long time, and I still lean into forgiveness on a daily basis. Yes. But the act of forgiving him was instantaneous, and it was life-changing. And if, you know, that's going through all of the layers like that, but I didn't have help. The words came from above, that I did what I was commanded. I was told to forgive, and I forgave, and it was complete, and it was whole-bodied. And then began the process of forgiving myself.
Yeah. Indeed. Like, this is the thing, forgiving oneself and basically going that journey which you've gone through. Not easy at all. The trials, tribulations you've most probably faced and stuff like this. You most probably could write 10 books about it and then some. You know what I mean? Here you are today, and like, I've got to say, like, yeah, the lady I speak to today, yeah, even through all of this, like, you are a magnificent soul, to say the least. And I'll say that to you sincerely. And like, yeah, I'm glad I'm talking to you today, you know? And like, I think, yeah, you're gonna have a lot to offer to this world, which I think you've done a lot, but I think there's a lot more to come. And we shall see where that takes you. But with regards to like the journey now, where you find yourself in the year of our Lord 2022. Where would you like this journey to go to next? Have you
Oh,
any ideas, or is it
yes.
still?
So yeah, no, so on that week between Scott's passing and his funeral, one of the many things that I wrote down when I was crafting what I want my life to look like is that I see myself as a world-class transformational speaker.
Yeah.
So that's my mission, is to take the shift process, the language and everything around that, and stand on stages all over the world, both electronically and like online and also in person, and just share those words of hope for people. We've gone through 2 years that this planet's never seen before at this level for this length of time. Yes, I know that we've had other pandemics, but nothing this visible. This has been such a visible pandemic. And then that means that more people have more heavy frequency to bear, so because it's so visible. When something's happening to someone on the other side of the world and you don't know about it, you don't have to have a compassionate heart. You don't even know it's happening.
Yeah.
So we're living in an environment where we need to shift the frequency of everybody on the planet. And when we can help everybody live their life on purpose and do the thing that they're meant to be doing, that lifts their frequency. They then lift the frequency of the people around them. And then together, it's like a rising tide lifts all ships. I believe we're going to herald a new age of compassion, a new age of love, light, and living life at the next level. And I believe the shift process is paramount in this, to help people understand that they can move from where they are and they can shift into that new life.
I would say, with regards to the global pandemic 2020, when it really kicked off, basically it was April here in the UK when we all went into lockdown. I think Australia may have been a little bit later.
No, March. We were the month before. We shut down in March.
Yeah, and basically from March, from you guys, all the way up until sort of October, like September, like the world basically stopped. And there was this moment where I think everyone collectively took a deep breath and went and basically let that air go inside. That's why, wait a second, I've got time to actually look around. I've got time to actually sort of evaluate things. I've got time. When you're in that sort of day-to-day rat race, going at it, we get so caught up. There isn't any sort of time to sort of go, okay, am I going in the right direction, or am I just going at this present time? And with 2020, I think there are many people which have gone, yeah, I want something better. I want something more. I'm just hoping that people don't forget this as we sort of the world is going back to what it was before, and the sort of pace of go, go, go kicks in once more. I hope people go, yes, I still believe in I've found something, now I want to go for that thing, rather than sort of forgetting that thing,
Absolutely. And it's one of the questions that I ask, my clients when I start working with them, is to have a look at what is their very big picture, and how did that change during COVID for you? So with the Great Resignation, which started August last year for America, and you guys, I'm sure, are in the throes of it as well. It started about February for us here in Australia. We are having people shift out of corporate jobs like we've never seen before. So we are seeing it happen. People are moving out of high-paid positions to write a book, to start a coaching business. I've got one of my clients on a ship traveling the world. They're all doing different things. And I do believe that if we can keep this momentum up by getting people to inwardly reflect, what is it that you want to do? What is the big picture for you? You can get out of the rat race. You can get out of the wheel, take a step out. We did during COVID. You can continue that. And I think just a general, if we keep this language up and we talk to people and ask questions about what were your thoughts, what were you planning to do, what can you do now to move towards that? I notice in the entrepreneurial space that it's happening at a great speed, and people are leaning into their awakenings, leaning into the light that they have and what they can share. And so I see the move being positive in the right direction. What's the tennis player that just gave up playing tennis to go write a kid's book?
Oh, God.
You know, that's a perfect example of people deciding to say, you know what, I'm going to live a different life, and that's okay. But it needs to start with, so for me, because I started with the purity of the forgiven heart, then making that decision was easy. If I hadn't followed the steps, if I hadn't come from a place of forgiveness and then made the decision and then continued with gratitude, it wouldn't have been the journey that it is now. So, you know, who do we need to forgive collectively, individually? Who do we need to forgive? Is it ourselves, our friends, our family? Is it our employers? Is it like, who do we need to forgive so that we can then make a decision to live this different life? And you're right, during the pandemic, we had these visions of things that we could possibly do because we gave ourselves time to step off the hamster wheel. But, I can encourage your listeners to take those steps in the right direction.
Wasn't the fact we give ourselves time to step off the hamster wheel. The hamster wheel stopped. It was just, everything stopped. And there was this moment of quiet. Just so when it was imposed on us, that's when everyone, a lot more people went, it wasn't a case of a midlife crisis for some people. And maybe in a few years I might be putting on a biker jacket and get myself a Harley Davidson. It's but it was a case of it was okay. You can't go to work. You can't do this. You can't do that. And and it might be for a father who's been working the Dickens to support family, and kids coming up to him and go, you know what? I'm happy you're here today to play with me. You know what I mean? Those small words kids can do to sort of go, oh God, crush you in a moment, and it's leave you in a blubbering mess. But all of these things, and I sometimes fearful that people might forget that. But yes, it's coming on to I like the fact that there has been a great resignation. I could see it coming, back in the June. I was going, this is going to be a huge shift. And I think with the way things are going with fuel prices, inflation, and name a number of global different things, I don't think there's going to be many people who want to go back to that old way. And I think they want to definitely stay present. I just hope they can.
I hear you, even from the speaking space. So we were having 40 events on a monthly basis in person. And so we had to transition in that March to move those 40 events to online events globally. So it took us a few weeks to get our ducks in a row and get it sorted, but we failed forward, we got it happening, and then we took an entire program as an in-person program, we took it to an online space and have been doing that all the way through the first year, part the way through the second year, and are now back to an even mix of in-person and online training and educational pieces. So it really, it's amazing. From the darkness of despair comes others' desire and the spark of genius for us to move forward with different things. If we all have that forward moving energy, we'll find another way to get it done.
Very true, very true. Now, I have to ask, because there's some materialistic weasels out there. Not me. Not me. Now, say if there was a mid-tier speaker, not top of the food chain type thing, how much do they get paid?
Okay.
Not me. Not me. There's other people out there. No.
Really great question. And it's different in each country. So Canada's different than America. America's different than the UK. UK is different than Australia. Each country is different. So I can only speak for the jobs that I've seen and for my clients that I help. Now, it would be great to say that in person is the same investment as online. It's not. So when you consider that they don't have to cover air flights and they're not covering accommodation and everything else, you'd like to think they'd be paying the speaker more, but it's not. So what I have noticed is a slightly reduced rate for what you deliver in an online, not huge, just a slightly different price range. So even if you're sort of just getting started, you've got a few runs on the board, you've got something that's really great and worthwhile delivering, you can be still asking, I'm giving Australia dollars here, so asking around about 5K, so 5,000 for an hour-long keynote. Once you've been at it a little while and you've got some runs on the board, or you bring celebrity status, or you've written a book, or there's some extra media attention, the higher you crawl up the ladder. Some of the people I work with are commanding 25,000 for 1 hour keynote.
God damn.
And I have met and spoken with people that have earned over $100,000 for a 1 hour keynote. Now, it just depends where you are and what you bring to the table as to what you'll earn. But even as a very, very new speaker, assuming that you've got backup with a bureau, about 5K. But some people that are just starting and actually haven't got any runs on the board, they can still command $1,000 or $2,000. So it is, well, from my understanding, one of the highest paid professions in the world. And it's because people just love to hear stories. They love to be entertained, whether it be online or in person. And, companies are investing huge quantities of money in mental health and in employee wellness. And so it's like a prerequisite for them to actually tick the box. They've got money to spend. I was just approached by someone who works for the government here in Australia, and they've got an inordinate sum of money that they're looking to actually invest in bringing speakers to deliver programs to help their employees stay engaged. So the money's there. So I love the profession, the speaking profession. It's beautiful. It's an opportunity to be able to share stories and have that level of connectedness. And what people bring to the table is just so varied and beautiful. I really enjoy being a speaker, trainer, coach. It helps me. And it also, I just warm and fuzzies from hearing all the stories. And when I get a client that goes, oh my God, I just picked up a 5K or I picked up a 10K, like, it makes me feel great to see them moving forward and living their dream as well.
Now I have to ask, now you don't have to give me the student's name or anything like this, but like, what has been your most successful student on earnings wise?
Okay, so some of the students, some of the people that I teach, so I'm a MINDSHIFT coach. Yes, all right. So not just a professional speaker. So that's one of the things I do. I help people in the speaking space. But as a MINDSHIFT coach, I've got clients that have turned over $2 million last year. So
yeah, wow.
So they're not working as professional speakers, they're working as coaches. So yes, there's an income to be made in the coaching area. It doesn't have to be done the way you think it has to be done. There are so many ways to do this. It's just not even remotely funny. And what I found is, if you can find a way to work with people that's in your flow, that's in your line of energy, so that it's working with when you're at your highest energy, early in the morning for you, might be later in the evening for someone else. They might be better at delivering on camera. They might be better delivering through content. Some people like structures, some people don't. So you really, once you figure out what your biorhythms are, how you work, how you're working with your own brain, with your own body, rather than working against it, which is what I see most people doing, then you can be, do, have, and share everything your heart desires. And you can have it with ease and with grace.
I am curious, what would you say has been one of your biggest lessons you've learned this year?
Biggest lesson I've learned this year. Every time that I think I've got this, I've still got more to go. So it's a constant learning. And even things that I think, I've got that box ticked, I've got that sorted, something else will come up to bring my awareness to, what? This isn't finished yet. It's another layer of the onion. So that this learning, this moving forward, this personal growth, this being more, this doing more, it's an ongoing life commitment. You're not going to finish until the day you die. So it's not done, and enjoy the journey. So now when things come up, they come up every day. When things come up, I now a lot more compassionate about it. So a lot more self-compassion to it. And I give this space between thought and action. Isn't that interesting is what I say to myself. And I'll journal on it so that I can see, okay, that's fantastic. When this happened a year ago, this is how you behaved. All right, okay, you've learned, you've grown. What more can we do to move forward? If we take that, growth mindset, if we take that moving forward mindset, it really does make a difference.
Yeah, like this is the thing. Like one of the things I would say I've learned over the course of time, it's like if you're playing like a finite game and an infinite game, the finite game, you get to that, if you're successful at your goal and everything like this, it's over. And then there's a realm of depression which sets in, and like, yeah, like a loss of focus of what you need to do next. When you play for the infinite game, it's a game where you just keep playing, regardless of the highs, lows, regardless of the triumphs, like the successes, just keep playing, going on until the day you like shuffle off this mortal coil. And yeah, at the day when like you go, I can't play no more, then it's a case of, yeah, you've most probably shuffled off, but just keep playing, keep on going. The infinite game.
It is so true. So I noticed that myself, as we've shared, that I'm a recovering perfectionist, is every time like I hit a goal, like I became an accountant and that was great. But then it was like, I didn't have a goal beyond a goal. I didn't think past that. I became a holistic psychologist. I'm like, I didn't think past that. So like having those visions beyond those visions and having the really, really, really long game. I love Stephen Covey's beginning with the end in mind. And for me, it becomes, what do you want your funeral to look like? What do you want them to have written on your tombstone? Like, can you think that far ahead? Can you imagine a world that's without you? What is the legacy that you've left behind? So when we think end game like that, then it's always steps towards that, rather than, because I've suffered from the deepest, darkest depressions, and it's been because I haven't had the big picture and the end game in mind.
I hear you. Because like this is the thing, some people won't even, like when you go like, look, what would your funeral look like? People, like there are some people like, no, don't like it's like, even though like statistically it's possible to have people what live forever, but statistically, yeah, you're not most really one of those people. It's like let's
get realistic. Let's hone in on reality.
Yeah.
And I really do love that, because it's the big picture. It's coming back to the big picture. So for the S of the shift process, to see the big picture of what's possible, how you want your life to be. I love it. Wow, we've chatted for an hour and a half. We are like I've finished my cup of cocoa. It's gone. We can talk.
I was going to ask you one more question.
Ask away. I was just remarkable that we've been talking for an hour and a half and I hadn't even noticed.
Well, this is the thing. And you were worried before the podcast. What
are we going to talk about for an hour and a half? You're like,
yes, come into my parlor.
I love it. Go on, hit me with one more question.
Now, you mentioned gratitude, being grateful. What has been one of the things which you've been grateful for this week?
Where do I start? It's just the simple things. It's the simple things. So even just the sun shining. So even if it's cold, if the sun's shining, I'll bring gratitude to that. Just wake up in the morning, I'm grateful I'm breathing. So if we can be grateful for the small things and on a daily basis, if we can be grateful for a warm bed, we can be grateful for hot water. Like if we can be grateful for the small things, what happens is we lift our frequency. And when we're lifting our frequency, we literally attract the things that we want. When we're in a space where we're not grateful for things, even the little things, then we stay in that frequency and we just get more of what we don't want. So if you want to be a beautiful manifester, if you want to be a magical manifester, if you want to live this life, this big life, you need to be in a space of gratitude on a daily basis, and it needs to be for everything. I've got a couple of practices that I do for gratitude that really work for me. One is a rampage of gratitude. If I'm curmudgeoning, if I'm feeling a bit meh, 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 if I'm curmudgeoning, then what I'll do is I'll do 5 minutes, which is a rampage of gratitude, and I will write down for 5 minutes, like a mad woman, like a possessed woman, the things I'm grateful for. And I just keep going and just keep going and just keep going, for 5 minutes, like, whew, okay. And so what that does, it shifts my gratitude. Yeah, shifts my level, shifts my frequency. Another one is, if I want to be a little bit more serene about my gratitude practice, it's called deep dive into gratitude. And that's just to choose one thing and write all of the reasons why you're grateful for that thing, and go layer under layer under layer under layer. And then that really it comes from a different level. So it's a softer, more grounded frequency of gratitude. Yes, and it's still all gratitude. So I start the day with prayer of gratitude and end the day with a prayer of gratitude. And I'm just grateful throughout the day. And I can tell you, after manifesting this many things in my life, that when you can maintain that level of gratitude for what you do have, the things that you want to come in, they just follow that frequency of gratitude.
I often say this: when you start finding things to be grateful for, you realize, how lucky you truly are in this world.
It's so true. It's so true.
Sharlene, got to say, immense pleasure to having you on today. It has been a joy. It has been a pleasure. And yes, it's brightened up my Sunday. Oh, yes, at 8:30 a.m. here in the UK. Can you tell the lovely people out there how they can find you out there on these interwebs?
Oh, yes. So all you need to do is look for Sharlene Lynch. That's spelled with an S, the Irish way, not the American way. So Sharlene Lynch, Lynch, spelled the Irish way, because I am Irish. And I'm on YouTube. I've got a website. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I'm around. And reach out. Even if you just want to have a 20-minute conversation, just to touch base, there's always a link on one of my platforms that you can just reach out, and I'd really be honored to connect. It's such a blessing to be on this planet at this time when such a shift is happening.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes, Sharlene, thank you for coming on today. It's been a pleasure. And I'd like to say thank you to you, my friends, my life warriors, for sticking with us up until this point. Please stay safe, stay well, be awesome, be excellent, be fantastic. Be all the positive bees you can be in this world, and then some. Have a great day, guys. Love ya. Peace. And we are